Hi everyone, number one Marmaduke fan here. I caved. I finally watched Hazbin Hotel. The pilot of the show came out 4 years ago, and I've periodically had followers ask me if I would review this show. What's kind of interesting about my channel is I have a lot of Christian followers, but I also get a lot of engagement from very LGBTQ accounts. I think because I talk about animation and comics and manga, so there's a lot of overlap. So I would periodically get requests to review or talk about this show. I've avoided thus far because I kind of suspected that I wouldn't like Hazbin Hotel. I kind of guessed that it was made by people who weren't Christians. It would probably be very cynical of Christianity or directly critical of Christianity. But very recently, it released on Amazon Prime, and that's prompted all this new discussion of it. And I've always been interested in the idea of Hazbin Hotel. I actually think the premise of the show is ingenious because it's essentially the same premise as C.S. Lewis's The Great Divorce. So if you take away nothing else from my video, it would be if you're a LGBTQ, you just absolutely love Hazbin Hotel and you ship them and you draw porn of all the characters and you're really interested in the premise of Hazbin Hotel, I would strongly encourage you to read The Great Divorce because it's essentially the same question as Hazbin Hotel, but addressed by a Christian, which is what would happen if sinners in hell sought redemption. So I decided to watch the episodes available of Hazbin Hotel so far. The name of this video series is No Hate Watching. So the idea of no hate watching is if I hate something, I'm not going to force myself to watch more and more and more of it and just keep complaining about it forever. I'll watch enough of it to get an idea of it and then talk about my impressions of the series. So I've watched the first, I think, 5 or 6 episodes of the series, and I think I have an ability to form my impression of it. So the TLDR, my impression of Hazbin Hotel, is it's a show that asks a very profound Christian question about redemption and sin, but its flaw, its weakness, is that it's afraid to show you a Christian answer to that question. There are obviously characters who are, critical of fundamentalist Christianity, but I actually think the main weakness of the show is it's hinting at Christ. It's hinting at the existence of God and Jesus Christ. But because it won't show you God and Jesus Christ, it's sort of like there's a gigantic missing piece of this show. There's a gigantic Jesus Christ on the cross shaped hole in the show that's sort of begging to, I'm sort of keep waiting for Jesus Christ to show up. Now, I don't blame them for not having Jesus Christ as a character. That might be a little weird. Like, imagine if Jesus showed up in Vizzy Pop's, art style where all of her male characters look like Tumblr sexy men. That'd be really weird. So I'm not saying that Jesus Christ would need to be a literal character. What I'm saying is, if you're going to ask a question about Christianity in your art, then you'd better be prepared to actually deal with what Christians think about this question. So let's dig into it. The show originated as an independent YouTube series. It was just published on YouTube, and it created a lot of discussion about the potential of publishing things on YouTube outside of the studio system. It's very well animated, by the way. I think the characters are very expressive. The cartoon work is great. I'm not a big fan of Vizzy Pop's design style. I tend to think she puts way too many details on everything, and a lot of her male characters fall into that, Tumblr sexy man trope. But I have to give it props on the animation quality. The Amazon series is just as good as the pilot. They recast some of the voices, which was a little awkward, but in terms of just the animation quality, that part is solid. I think the most interesting thing about this series is what it has to say about sin, what it has to say about hell, what it has to say about redemption. So let's dig into that. It kind of falls into the classic trope of asking, what if the demons were sympathetic and could be redeemed? And what if the angels were judgmental bad guys, right? Which is kind of becoming a cliche. It's basically Shrek. Shrek is a movie about what if the monster was the good guy and what if Prince Charming was the bad guy. That's interesting if you're the first one to do it. If you're the 1,000th person to do it, it's not as interesting. But the most interesting character to me is Charlie. The premise of the show is that Charlie is the daughter of Lucifer and Lilith. She's born in hell, and She feels sympathy for the people in hell, but she hates hell because she sort of sees the ugliness and evil all around her, and she desperately desires to be free. She desperately desires to make their lives better, and she desperately desires to see souls saved from hell. So there's a sense where Charlie parallels Jesus Christ. She wants to save sinners from hell. But Charlie is also naive. She believes in sort of, magical rainbows and bunny rabbits, and everybody has good in them, and I can make everybody good if they just try to be better. And what's interesting about this is the show actually portrays her as naive. Characters listen to her and they laugh at her. A lot of the people in hell, they aren't, sad and just so wishing that they could redeem themselves. They like being sinners. They like being cruel, sadistic, drug addicted, debaucherous monsters, and so they laugh at her and they think she's a joke. So here's my question. Because Charlie is asking a question about redemption, the thing I keep wondering is, okay, where is Christ in all of this? Now, you might say, well, the show's not supposed to be a literal interpretation of the biblical view of heaven and hell. It's got, some weird, fantastical elements to it, but this is very much a Christian view of hell. Her father is Lucifer, a biblical character. The demons use upside-down crosses as a symbol. In heaven, there are Christian crosses present. So it's kind of like it keeps hinting, okay, this is a Christian view of heaven and hell. Where is God? What is he? When is he going to start to play a part in the story? And it never happens. If you're waiting for that, it's never going to happen. I think because that would be it'd be a little too complicated for them to bring in God and have him present as a character. So what I would say is, even if they didn't want to depict Jesus, you needed to say something about Jesus if you're going to ask this question. And if you don't, it's kind of like his presence is noticeable by its absence. If everybody's avoiding mentioning Jesus, why are they all avoiding mentioning Jesus? So let me talk a little bit about the Great Divorce. So to me, it's not a big deal if a series asks a question or creates a sort of fantasy universe where something isn't strictly according to how it would be in the Bible. It's fine it's perfectly fine for you to imagine a scenario where things play out differently than in the Bible. What if there was a story about the Nephilim who were mentioned in Genesis, and what if a Nephilim didn't want to follow Satan, and what if a Nephilim wanted to redeem? How would that play out? That's an interesting what if question, even if the Bible doesn't answer that. So C.S. Lewis asks the same what-if question in The Great Divorce, which is that people are trapped in hell. It's sort of like a gigantic, empty, miserable city. And if you want to get out of hell, there's a bus, and you can just take the bus straight to heaven. But ironically, almost nobody takes this bus because they are so obsessed with themselves that they just retreat deeper and deeper and deeper into hell. So it's this very pregnant idea that you could get out of hell anytime, but none of them want to. They prefer hell to essentially having the humility to leave hell and submit to God. Once they encounter heaven, once this little bus stop arrives in heaven and they get out, what they find about heaven is that heaven is real. It's not people sitting on clouds plucking harp strings. It's substantive. It's full of life. It's sort of creation perfected, and that actually makes hell hard for them to stomach because they're almost like ghosts. They're spirits who are so used to being focused inward and thinking only about themselves and their own, selfish interests, that when you encounter the real and when you encounter heaven, it's like it's too much beauty and it's too much goodness for you to handle, right? It's a very interesting portrayal of heaven. So if the only picture you have in your head of heaven is the Bugs Bunny picture of it, where they're sitting on clouds with little dinky wings on their back plucking harpstrings, if you take nothing else away from this video, go read The Great Divorce right now, because that's going to entirely change your view of what the Christian view of heaven is. So the biblical answer to the question is no. The whole point of the final judgment is it's final. The whole point of going to heaven or hell is that it's eternal. But I'm totally open to the idea of you of a writer imagining what it would be like for a person in hell to suddenly transport themselves to heaven. So how does Hazbin Hotel explore this question? Let me go through my notes on the episodes to talk about that. So first is the pilot. The pilot was released on YouTube and sort of introduces all the characters. So Charlie dreams of opening a hotel where they can redeem sinners and give them a chance at redemption and sort of reduce the population in hell by letting sinners who want to be redeemed go to heaven. And everybody laughs at her. Everybody thinks this is a completely ridiculous idea. Charlie's a lesbian, so of course, so her girlfriend Vaggie supports Charlie and kind of acts as a voice of reason, trying to keep Charlie from getting too excited or too caught up in her little dreams. The only resident of Charlie's hotel is Angel Dust, a drug-addicted, flamboyantly homosexual porn star who is completely uninterested in changing. He freely admits the only reason he's there is he likes having a free room. So Charlie's problem is she seems very naive. The only person she even has interested so far openly doesn't care. He doesn't give a damn about redeeming himself at all. A powerful demon named Alistair, the radio demon, introduces himself to Charlie. He's very cynical. He's very obsessed with power politics and kind of carving out his own little chunk of hell to be lord over. And he admits that, I think this idea is completely ridiculous, but I find it entertaining. So I'm willing to help you purely because I think it'll be fun to watch people fail. So she has a demon helping her who has his own agenda, and she's so willing to believe that there's good in people. She's sort of not paying attention to the fact that Alistair has his own power agenda that he's pursuing. So episode 1 picks up right where the pilot left off. Charlie just narrates kind of like the origin story of her father. She describes the fall of Satan, and something that's clear from her narration is that she really sympathizes with her father. This is where I think one of the first problems of the series comes in. It's very obvious that Charlie is like a metaphor for an abused child. She is trapped in her father's world. She wants to see the good in people, even if they don't want to change themselves. She's like an abused housewife who just keeps hoping that if she just loves her husband enough, he'll stop hitting her. And there are actually characters who comment on the fact that she has daddy issues. I really think it would be a lot more interesting if Satan wasn't portrayed sympathetically, if Satan was just portrayed as an abusive dad that Charlie has to get away from. But that's not the direction the show writers go. The direction the show writers go is that Charlie is sympathetic towards her dad, and I think the show writers are also sympathetic towards Satan. Their idea is that Satan just wanted to create something, but the other angels in hell, they didn't like his weird, creative, rebellious ideas, and they punished him by sending him to hell. There's also a mention of Lilith. Lilith is not in the Bible, but Lilith is in Jewish mythology, ancient Jewish mythology. So Lilith was supposed to be the first wife of Adam. She was too rebellious, so God gave them Eve instead. And very noticeably, I think the writers take a feminist interpretation of Lilith and Eve. So the normal interpretation of the book would be that Lilith's a demonic bad creature, and that the point of the biblical story is that wives should be obedient to their husbands. The feminist interpretation is that Lilith is actually secretly a feminist hero, and that it was good for Eve to eat the forbidden fruit and gain knowledge, right? And I think the writers of this show have probably read the feminist interpretation and accepted the feminist interpretation. Lilith is presented as a heroic symbol of independence rather than as a seditious rebel against authority. So another illustration of that is Lucifer in this series. He doesn't rebel against God. He rebels against the high council of angels. So again, there's like this pregnant question of, well, we're referencing Christianity, we're referencing all of these biblical ideas and characters. Where is God in all of this? He's sort of missing from the story. The other big premise of the show is once a year, the angels come down to hell and engage in a giant extermination. And this is what they're all terrified of. This is what's giving Charlie a time pressure where she wants to try to save sinners from hell before the next extermination happens. At the end of episode 1, Charlie gets to meet Adam, and Adam has essentially been promoted to the role of angel, which is a little weird because Adam isn't supposed to be an angel. Adam's supposed to be a human being. but I guess we just got to accept that idea. So basically, Adam has been promoted to the what would really be the role of Michael the Archangel, and he's the one who leads the annual extermination event. When Charlie meets Adam, what she finds out that Adam is a giant dick. He's essentially a caricature of a closed-minded, hypocritical, fundamentalist Christian. He has a very black and white worldview. He's misogynistic, and he's a sadist. He enjoys punishing and killing sinners, and he bluntly tells Charlie there's no way that you're ever going to get sinners out of hell. So for me, this is where the problems of the show are starting to crop up. It's obvious that Adam's a caricature of fundamentalist Christianity, but it kind of doesn't make sense to me from a world building perspective. How can Adam be a sadistic psychopath essentially, and how can he get away with that in heaven for thousands of years? It's also a little weird to have Adam in the role of an angel, and I think the reason is they're treating Adam as the symbol of the patriarchy. Adam is the domineering husband who wanted to rule over his wife, so he's the biggest dick imaginable. But let's accept we're trying to like take the premise of the show seriously, so let's accept that as a premise. Adam's a huge dick. He's cruel. He's sadistic. He loves punishing sinners, and he crushes Charlie's hopes and dreams. Episode 2, we meet the V's. One criticism I have of the show, by the way, is to me Charlie is the most interesting character, but then we get to meet more and more and more and more demons and see all of their little machinations and struggles over hell. So the V's are one of the groups of demons that are trying to secure power in hell. They've been fighting with Alistair, the radio demon, so when they hear that Alistair's staying with Charlie, they're all very interested in this and they wonder what his game is. One of the V's is a obnoxious, abusive man-child named Valentino. He's a pimp, he's a porn producer, and he owns Angel Dust, the porn star who's living with Charlie and basically not bothering to redeem himself while staying in the halfway house. We'll see more of Valentino later. So the V's enlist a spy to kind of infiltrate Charlie's hotel and figure out what she's up to. The spy makes his way in, and they catch him very quickly. And Angel Dust and the others want to kill this guy, but Charlie, of course, forgives him because she believes he's sincerely sorry. And her whole premise is, I want to give sinners a second chance. So, episode 3, they do a bunch of silly little trust exercises as Charlie hilariously tries to get them to repent their ways. There's a great little skit that illustrates this. So she has them do like a PSA about saying no to drugs and not having sexual intercourse. And they all, the gag is that Charlie's very naive and cringy, but they kind of play along with Charlie because they find her sweet. So what's interesting is Charlie is trying to promote Christian moral values in hell. When you portray a character like Charlie, it's obvious that the values she wants to promote are Christian values. So what's interesting to me about this show is it keeps having these sort of weird, accidentally countercultural moments where even though the writers are critical of Christianity, it's sort of like Christian ideas sneak in from time to time. So Charlie tries to promote saying no to drugs and saying no to fornication. They have a few little silly adventures, and some of them start to express an interest in maybe changing their ways. Episode 4, Masquerade, was my favorite. This is kind of like the whole hinge of my argument is on this episode. So we see Angel Dust's backstory. So recently I had a conservative Christian friend of mine ask me, how can I write an LGBTQ character in a Christian story if I'm critical of the LGBTQ agenda? And what I told this person is, well, if you want to do that, then you have to take them seriously as a character. You kind of have to ask, where are they at? What does this person believe? Why do they believe what they believe? And then you have to let Christ come into the story naturally. So I would actually say, if you're a Christian who wants to know how can I talk about homosexuality in a way that's consistent with my Christian worldview in a story, Angel Dust is actually a perfect example of this. And I can't believe that the writers of Hazbin Hotel are missing this. Maybe it's an accident. Who knows? So what we know about Angel Dust is he is a flaming, flamboyant, homosexual porn star and drug addict. Husk, the bartender at the hotel, accuses Angel Dust of being fake, and this infuriates him. This insults him. And so he storms off. Charlie comes to the studio to talk to his pimp and try to get him more time off, and she accidentally makes everything worse. So what we learn is, Charlie comes, she screws up, trips, causes a fire, and so the pimp grabs Angel Dust and, in a really ugly scene, slaps him around and tells him to get rid of Charlie. So what we learn about Angel Dust is his whole persona is fake. He pretends to be this degenerate slut who's very proud of what he does and very sexually teasing of everybody, but really he's a slave. He's trapped in a perpetual abusive relationship. He can't get out because he's an addict. He hates his life, and he's effectively a sex slave. There's a really ugly scene where Angel Dust is essentially being raped and sexually abused on screen, and because he's a porn star, he has to pretend that he likes it, but inside he hates himself and he wants to die, right? This is a really incredible portrayal of the ugliness of sin. It seems to offer you this liberation. Oh, I'm having so much fun. I'm such a slut. But inside, he's completely miserable. He's full of shame. He hates his life. He's a slave, and he can't get out. He leaves the studio miserable, alone, crying. He hates his life, and then Husk comes and talks to him again, and he sings a song. It's a musical. So the song Husk sings is that you're a loser and I'm a loser, and we're both kind of like you. I'm also trapped. So Husk and Angel Dust are two people who are trapped essentially by contract. They've sold their soul to someone else, and they have no way out. So my whole point here is this is the writers accidentally saying something that's very Christian. This is a very Christian perspective on what sin is. It seems to offer you all of this pleasure and all of this liberation and all of this fun, but really being a hedonist traps you. You're a slave to your own sin, and you become a hollow shell. Angel Dust needs a savior. Now, who could his savior be? So here's where so this is the part I like. The part I like is it's portraying sin as ugly, banal, empty, meaningless. But there's really no good answer on how the heck is Angel Dust supposed to get out of this situation. It's almost as if, because Angel Dust is trapped, he needs some kind of savior to come in and rescue him from his sin. It's almost like drug-addicted homosexual porn stars like Angel Dust need Jesus Christ. So, episode 5, we finally meet Lucifer. Charlie's sort of struggling to get her hotel to work, so Vaggie pleads with Charlie, call in a favor with your dad and ask him to help you. When we meet Lucifer, this is again portraying him very sympathetically. He desperately wants his daughter to like him. So even though he thinks that her whole idea is silly and it's never going to work, he agrees to arrange a meeting for her so she can meet the angels in heaven and make an appeal to them. So I would say it's not just Charlie who's sympathetic to Satan. The writers are also very deliberately portraying Satan as this, sympathetic father figure who just wants his daughter to love her, and I don't buy it. Like, I think the whole idea of Satan is that he's supposed to be evil, so they're kind of missing the point of the biblical character of Satan here. But let's move on. So, episode 6, Welcome to Heaven. This for me is where the show really starts to fall apart. So. Her father gets her the deal to visit heaven. She meets Saint Peter at the pearly gates, and Sarah the seraphim allows her in. And Sarah's companion is Emily, a little seraphim who's very sympathetic to Charlie. Charlie's enraptured by it. It's all wonderful. And by the way, it's a very cartoony portrayal of heaven as a bunch of happy, slappy people, clapping and singing and, floating around on clouds. So again, I'll emphasize this point. If that's your view of what heaven is, go read The Great Divorce right now, and you'll get a much more sophisticated idea of heaven. But heaven's a happy, silly little place full of angels, and almost none of the angels know about the purge. That's basically a state secret. Emily's very interested in the idea of redeeming souls from hell, so they have basically a trial where they allow Charlie to make her case. Adam is there, of course, and Adam's a giant dick and cynical and using profane language and making fun of Charlie as she tries to make her case. And Sarah, the head of the Seraphim, sort of doubts that there's any way that souls in hell can be redeemed, but she's willing to let Charlie make her case. So Charlie starts to talk about redemption and forgiveness and turning over a new leaf. And again, where is Jesus Christ? Is there, if we're going to have a show that asks the question, how can sinners be redeemed from their sin? How could sinners have their souls saved from hell? Isn't there a character in the Bible who might have something to say on the topic? But Jesus isn't present. He's absent. And so basically this becomes a gigantic question with no answer in the show. So she suggests, well, maybe if people try to be better, they deserve a second chance. At one point she asks, well, what is it that gets a soul into heaven? And none of the angels know the answer. So the idea is these angels are just following tradition. They don't really know why some souls are in hell and why souls are in heaven. They're just rigorously enforcing the tradition without really understanding the tradition. And I don't buy it, right? You're telling me that no one in heaven has an answer to the question of why some souls are in heaven and why some souls are in hell. As Charlie makes this case, Adam loses his cool and starts bragging about how they're going to come down to hell and murder a bunch of souls in hell again, accidentally letting the cat out of the bag. So all the people in the court are shocked by this news. They had no idea. Emily gets furious and accuses Sarah and Adam of being hypocrites. Why are we being so cruel and torturing these poor souls in hell? So Emily and Charlie get up and they sing a song kind of calling out the angels of heaven for their hypocritical double standard. So here's my problem. Here's where I think the show is falling apart. It's asking a question about redemption. What's it take to be redeemed? Charlie's answer seems to be, well, if you try to do better, that's proof that you deserve a chance at redemption. And I would argue that by definition, anyone who needs redemption doesn't deserve redemption. Because if you need redemption, what that means is you are an insufferable piece of shit, right? If you're a miserable little wife abuser, you don't deserve redemption. If you get redemption from that, that is you getting a grace you don't deserve. If you are a psychopathic, murderous, rapist, abusive person, you don't deserve redemption. So let's go back to angel dust. To me, what's profound about angel dust is that angel dust is trapped. He would like to save himself. He would like to be free, but he's stuck. He can't get out even though he wants to. Angel dust does not deserve redemption because he is a selfish, murderous, psychopathic degenerate, right? And he kind of knows that he's a psychopathic, murderous degenerate, but he doesn't see any way out. So this is the giant Christ-shaped hole in the story is these sinners need a savior, but there is no savior coming to save them. This is where the episode 6 ends. So to review, it's presenting sin honestly. It's not saying, oh yay, being in hell is a big gay fun party where we all drink and have sex and have fun. It's very honestly saying that living in hell would suck because everybody would be a selfish, hedonistic bastard who only cares about themselves and only cares about satisfying their own lusts and desires at the expense of everyone else. Everybody's making everybody else miserable. Everybody in hell is miserable, but they're all too selfish to do anything about it. Charlie naively is trying to fix this problem without really having a good solution to this problem. And then her conflict is with heaven where, yes, everybody in hell is a malicious, selfish piece of crap, but the people in heaven are hypocritical or naive about this problem. So I think I'm not going to watch beyond this point because I now have a sense of the show. I highly doubt that there's going to be like a really base scene where Jesus Christ comes in and offers redemption to sinners, but that's basically the missing part of the question. It's showing you, when it shows you sin, it's really good because it's showing you the emotional horror of being trapped in sin and the desperation that these people have to get out of their life of sin. But then it doesn't have an answer to the question of what you're supposed to do when you're trapped in that life. So I can really respect Hazbin Hotel as a work of art in the sense that I think it's showing the effects of sin correctly. What's tragic about it is it's asking this question and then it's not showing you what the answer to the question is. It's showing you a caricature of Adam as the mean fundamentalist Christian type, but they can't show you the love of Christ as an answer to this problem because that would be way too based for a cartoon on Amazon Prime. So those are my thoughts. It's the violence and sex is very hard R rated, so I would avoid this show if that's a struggle for you. You can't if you don't want to expose yourself to that, then please don't expose yourself to that. And if you want a better exploration of the exact same question, I would say go with The Great Divorce. To me, I respect Hazbin Hotel as an artwork. I kind of wish it would explore that question, the question of Christ, a little bit more deeply. But I don't think it is going to explore that question. It could have been The Great Divorce for Zoomers, but that's where it falls short. So those are all my thoughts. That's the end of my no hate watching video. I'm number one Marduk fan. I love you guys. Turn to Jesus Christ right now. Catch you later.